The Shmospel of Aida, Part 2. Wednesday, February the 8th, 2006. In the morning, Shmeiki Baba wanted to meditate, while I did yoga on the balcony, and then we made love. For the most part, Shmeiki Baba was super present, though at times his mind seemed to wander. I asked him where to, and he was evasive, but I persisted, telling him that I could see there was something he wanted to share. He looked guilty and said that there was something he was shy about. You, who talks about cosmic channels, you're still shy about something. What can it be? I asked. Aida, while I am with you, I want to serve you as my mistress, he said. What? You mean like S&M? I asked. Yes, he said. I'm not really sure what that means, I replied. I want you to expect my obedience and to beat me if I don't serve you properly, he said. Oh God, what next? I asked. Forget I mentioned it, he said, looking disappointed and ashamed. While I felt love for him, I felt a strong resistance to his request. I explained that it just wasn't something I wanted to do. He said this was okay, but I knew he felt hurt. I tried to reassure him that it was good that he had shared his desire with me, as this brought it one step closer to realization. He agreed, and with that he went to take a shower, while I began to tidy up my room. When he came out of the bathroom, he had a look on his face I didn't recognize. I asked him what was on his mind, and he explained that Sheila had just instructed him that his great walk must begin in 2 days. You're leaving now because I don't want to fulfill your fantasy, I said. It's not that, he said. Sheila has given me a mission. Love is also an opportunity for healing, I said. I know, but still I must leave, he said. I felt dejected. Even though we had known each other for such a short time, I had strong feelings for him, and my heart ached. Shmeiki Baba put his hand on my leg, but his touch felt ugly, and I shoved him away. You're the most amazing woman I've ever met, he said. So stay, I said. I have to go, he insisted. You could begin your walk in a couple of weeks. You're a coward who's running away at the first resistance, I shouted. A coward doesn't walk out of Touristville without a wallet or shoes, he said. So let me come with you, I said. That's not possible, he said. Why not? I asked. Your presence would allow me to hide from myself, he said. And in that moment, the expression on his face changed from a look of sadness to one of pain. Oh no, he said in a panic. My hemorrhoids are throbbing. It must be Sheila. Aida, I'm sorry for being a dick. Please write down what she says through me. I found myself picking up my notebook and pen while Shmeiki Baba rolled around on the floor in pain. Gradually he became still and began to speak in a female voice which wasn't his. Though I felt frightened, I managed to scribble down the words he was speaking, and I accepted that he was indeed channeling some kind of entity. Sheila 2. Aida is right. When she showed disinterest in exploring your sexual fantasy, your fears of rejection and abandonment were triggered, and you decided to run away, using me as an excuse. Shmeiki Baba, your destiny might be to become a great teacher, but if you are not careful, if you continue to act from your wounds without learning to love and accept yourself, you will become nothing more than the rest of the shyster gurus. For this reason, it is a good idea, as you suggested, that you will begin your great walk the day after tomorrow. Now, Aida, I realize this is painful, but in the long run, you will thank me. As he is, if Shmeiki Baba stays here, little good will come from your relationship. Sheila fell silent, and Shmeiki Baba opened his eyes, I looked at the page of writing in front of me and felt that I'd been touched by a great mystery. From the tips of your toes to the sparkle in your eyes, you are good and sweet. I'm sorry for muddying the waters by trying to paint my fantasy onto you. I realize I hurt you and broke our intimacy, said Shmeiki Baba. I know, I said, and I love you. You do? Said Shmeiki Baba. Of course, I said. Will you meet me in Dharamsala when my walk is over? He asked. If you're still alive, I said. I will be, he replied. He thought for a moment and asked, Will you look after my wallet and telephone for me until then? I agreed to do so, and I felt my sadness draining away. What replaced it was a sense of new pathways opening. We hugged and went out to the pharmacy to get something for his hemorrhoids. How we laughed when the brand of cream offered to him by the pharmacist was called Thank God. In the afternoon, we took a walk up to the promontory at the northern end of Arambol beach. By the time we got to the white cross on top of the hill, we were quite out of breath and rested there a while, looking at the outcrop of rocks where the beach begins and beyond it the expanse of the Arabian Sea. Looking south down the beach were traditional rowing boats, still used by the locals for fishing. A group of them was struggling to pull in a fishing net. Behind them were beach cafes, sun loungers and umbrellas, and to the left a thick canopy of palm trees. It went on like this much of the way to the village of Mandram, and further on down the coast. In the distance we could see people beginning to gather for the sunset drum circle. We climbed our way down to the beach, splashed our feet in the edge of the sea, and walked past a group of yogis and yoginis saluting the sun. One woman was balancing herself on her partner's foot. She fell and landed on his groin, and he shouted out in pain. Agro yoga, said Shmeiki Baba as we walked past. Very funny, snarled the man. We got to where the main road meets the beach and a sea of scooters is parked. There we walked on dry sand, so we could jump over what we called the shit river. This was the main outlet of untreated liquid waste from the village into the sea. Further on, in front of the beach temple, a Tai Chi class was being led by a tall, thin, Aryan-looking man who wore small, round, tortoise-shell glasses. Next to him, a group of dark-skinned, dreadlocked Israelis passed around a chillum, looking dazed and primordial, while two Slavic women were trying to walk over the sand wearing high heels, with the support of their serious-looking boyfriends. We continued past a woman who was lying on her back, while a man with long silver hair held his hands over her head with a dramatic look on his face. Must be a light worker, said Shmeiki Baba. When we reached the drum circle, we stood taking in the scene. A group of attractive hippie girls were dancing to the drums in earth-tone dresses, fishnet stockings, and with feathers in their hair. Young children chased one another around them. The majority of tourists in Arambol were now Russians, who had discovered that Goa offered a cheap way to escape a freezing winter. Until just a couple of years before, it was said to be the Israelis who formed the biggest group. The Russian invasion had been swift and silent, and was complete when the internet cafes replaced the Hebrew stickers on their keyboards with Cyrillic ones. Of course, there were also tourists from just about everywhere else. Many returned to Goa every year and would stay the whole season from November to March, working the rest of the time back home in the West to pay for their winters of freedom. As well as hippies, there were ravers. There were dancers, musicians, spiritual seekers, middle-class dropouts, addicts, and any combination of the above. The majority of locals in Arambol were Hindu, but there was also a large Catholic community, and while the Hindu women tended to wear saris, the Catholic women wore long 1950s-style dresses. The male youths liked to wear football shirts of teams like Real Madrid and Manchester United. Here, as elsewhere, the double-edged knife of tourism was slicing into the peace and quiet, as multi-story hotels, restaurants and bars, hard drugs and prostitution were becoming increasingly prevalent in this once innocent paradise. Some local women stopped next to us to stare in disbelief at the scantily clad Russian girls who had joined the stylized hippies gyrating their hips to the drums. I asked them what they thought of it, and one of them answered, "Well, among lakhs of tourists coming here, many are decent, and some are junky ones too." This seemed to be a fair assessment of the situation. The drummers were banging out an African rhythm, sitting on wooden sun loungers with their djembes on the floor. In front of them, a Tibetan guy was sitting on his knees, eyes closed, throwing handfuls of sand over his head. Between the drummers and the sea, a group of fire dancers, hula hoop twirlers, skittle jugglers, ball balancers, poi spinners, and stick jumpers were performing. A bald-headed man wearing contact lenses, which made him look like he had reptilian eyes, was balancing 3 clear acrylic balls on top of his head. "What focus he has," I said. "Most definitely," said Shmeiki Baba. "Doesn't stop him being a twat, though." "What you see in others is a reflection of what you see in yourself," I said. "That is true, my love," said Shmeiki Baba. Meanwhile, 2 women were walking among the impromptu performers, purifying them with bunches of burning sage. A German man known as Uncle Tim joined the drummers wearing his characteristic grey vest. He banged his drum with the same iron fist that years later he would use to moderate the Arambol community Facebook group. In the meantime, the drummers raced faster, and there was a rumbling of didgeridoos and the sporadic cry of the high-pitched flute of an older Indian man who wore a red scarf tied around his neck. A dark, curly-haired European entered sharply on his trumpet. Shmeiki Baba saw me wince and said, "There's something rather apocalyptic about all this." Alan, Nigel and Paul, 3 of Shmeiki Baba's friends, came over to us. I was surprised by how mainstream they looked, all dressed in preppy designer shirts. They were surprised to see Shmeiki Baba and wanted to know how he had fared in the jungle. He said it had gone great, and that I was what he had found there. He also told them he was due to leave on a pilgrimage the next day. "Pilgrimage?" asked Paul in disbelief. "You've only just finished your jungle vision quest." "Yes," said Shmeiki Baba. "I guess we've got a lot of catching up to do." "Were you planning on coming to visit us before you leave?" asked Paul. "I was getting round to it," said Shmeiki Baba. "Getting round to it?" said Paul, insulted. "I guess I was disappointed that you didn't believe me about Sheila," said Shmeiki Baba. "Oh, that again," said Nigel. "Yes, that again," said Shmeiki Baba. "Are you surprised?" asked Alan. "No," said Shmeiki Baba. "In any case, you could have come to say you were okay," said Paul. "Yes, I could have done, and for that I'm sorry, but I've been busy with Aida," said Shmeiki Baba. "That part is understandable," said Nigel, turning to me with surprising grace for an Englishman. I thanked him. "And where is this pilgrimage to?" asked Paul. "To Dharamsala," said Shmeiki Baba. "In the Himalayas?" asked Nigel. "Yes," said Shmeiki Baba. "That's a very long way," said Paul. "Sounds a bit ridiculous to me," said Nigel. "Completely," said Alan. "Is Aida going with you?" "No," I said. "But she's so beautiful, how can you leave her here?" asked Alan. "It's difficult, but it's what I must do," said Shmeiki Baba. "You know, your bag is still in my room," said Alan. "Yes, I'll come and get it," said Shmeiki Baba, "though the truth is, I won't be needing most of my things." "Oh God," said Nigel. "Basically, David, you've flipped out and gone totally bananas." "Actually, my name is no longer David," said Shmeiki Baba. "So what is it?" asked Paul. "Shmeiki Baba," said Shmeiki Baba. "Oh, you really have gone mad," said Paul. "Not completely, but as I said, It will take some time to explain, said Shmeiki Baba. I'm all ears, said Alan. Okay, but later on, said Shmeiki Baba. Is he okay? Asked Paul, looking at me. That depends what you mean by okay, I said with a smile. Shmeiki Baba gave me a wink, and with that, his 3 friends sighed and wandered off. While we stood watching the setting sun, Mireille and Tasha, a French couple I knew from my yoga class, came over. Mireille said, Our Swami from Tiruvannamalai is coming to our house to make Kundalini Shakti Puja. Would you like to come? Maybe, I answered. Very good, you just have to make small donation and boombolinat, everybody happy, said Mireille. Off walked Mireille and Tasha, and I told Shmeiki Baba they have matching wedding rings, and inside them is carved the word Aniksha. Is that Sanskrit for impermanence? Asked Shmeiki Baba. Yes, I said. Then Liz, who I knew from Odyssey dance, approached us, holding her hands in a prayer gesture. She looked deeply into my eyes and into Shmeiki Baba's too. I asked her how she was, and she answered cheerfully, Good Walla, today full power yoga doing, market going, friend helping, she baby having, so placenta drying, chopping, and capsules making. Where are you from, Liz? Asked Shmeiki Baba. Mansfield, said Liz. You mean Mansfield near Nottingham in England? Asked Shmeiki Baba. Tika, she said. So why are you talking pidgin English? Asked Shmeiki Baba. Just happening, said Liz. What do your family say when you talk that way? Asked Shmeiki Baba. Well, my dad says, cut out that shit, will you? Said Liz. Funny that, said Shmeiki Baba. Soon after, another woman waved and came over to us. Shmeiki Baba introduced her to me as Vibeke from Denmark, whom he had met in Pune. Vibeke smiled and pointed to a badge she was wearing on her shirt, which said, In silence. She signalled us to wait while she took a pad and pen from her bag and began to write. She passed the pad to Shmeiki Baba, who read the message out loud. I am so happy to see you, though as you can see, I have taken a vow of silence. I'm here in Goa with my new Tantra guru. His name is Narkis. For a moment we all stood together in silence. So this is the sound of silence, said Shmeiki Baba finally. I realized Vibeke was swishing some liquid around her mouth, and I asked her, What have you got in your mouth? Vibeke took back the pad and wrote another note. That's my pee, it said. Shmeiki Baba laughed when he read this, causing Vibeke to spit out her pee, at which point 2 of her male friends joined us. They were both tilting their heads to the side and already holding their pads and pens at the ready. Both were dressed in pastel fisherman pants, had shaved heads, and carried colourfully embroidered Baba bags on their shoulders. We all said hi, or rather, they pointed to notes which said Namaste. Shmeiki Baba asked to borrow one of their pads. He wrote them a note and handed it back to them. The note said, You know that writing notes is just like talking. The 2 guys vehemently shook their heads. Shaking your heads is also just like talking, said Shmeiki Baba. Vibeke shook her finger at Shmeiki Baba and smiled at me with a look of, Oh well, you're the one who has to deal with this difficult boy. I smiled back, and Vibeke and her friends scuttled off, pointing at their Namaste notes. She was so alive in Pune, said Shmeiki Baba. Well, she's found a guru now, I said. Another one bites the dust, said Shmeiki Baba. As the sun was setting into the sea, without being obscured by haze or clouds, Shmeiki Baba began to clap, and others on the beach joined in. Some people even cheered and whistled, and Shmeiki Baba shouted out, Thank you, everyone! The sun is grateful for your appreciation. And I said to Shmeiki Baba, You know, my love, your cynicism can get a bit heavy sometimes. He thought for a while and said, Yes, I guess I'm stressed about leaving you and fearful of beginning my great walk. I gave him a hug. As it was getting dark and people were leaving the beach in the direction of the village, Alan, Nigel and Paul came back to us. "There's a vegan buffet at Magic Park," said Paul. "What? Tragic fart? Great mother save me," said Shmeiki Baba. "So, where would you like to go?" asked Alan. "The banyan tree," said Shmeiki Baba. "The banyan tree? Why there?" asked Paul. "It feels like the right place for us to say goodbye," said Shmeiki Baba. "But it's such a long way, and it's nearly dark," complained Paul. "Oh, come on, guys," said Shmeiki Baba. "Get a torch. It'll be worth the effort." "What about your bag?" asked Alan. "I'll grab it on our way back," said Shmeiki Baba. It was a good 40-minute walk from the drum circle to the banyan tree. When we finally got there, we were surprised to find a number of Shmeiki Baba's other friends, like Stonefish, Sebastian, and some others I didn't know, were already sitting around the fire. The flames lit up the Shiva shrine at the base of the tree, and its thick, ghostly prop roots which hung down from the branches. Soon after us, Alan, Nigel, and Paul arrived. "You know, the banyan is a type of fig tree, which can only begin its life by growing in the crack of another tree or rock," said Shmeiki Baba. "Yes, it's called an epiphyte, while you, my friend, are a neophyte," joked Alan. We ate papaya, peanuts, and bebinka, a delicious local Goan cake made from coconut oil. Shmeiki Baba sang a soulful song in gibberish. Afterwards, Stonefish got out a small brass box and explained that it contained DMT. He offered to prepare pipes for those who wished to smoke it. Shmeiki Baba and I gently refused, and I lay with my head in his lap while he stroked my hair. Sebastian was a tall German man with piercing blue eyes, a blonde beard, and extremely long, thick dreadlocks, which were wrapped into a cake on top of his head. He asked Shmeiki Baba, "Brother, where will you walk until?" "Until Dharamsala," answered Shmeiki Baba. "That must be about 2,000 kilometers," said Sebastian. "Yes," said Shmeiki Baba. "And do you think you will pass through Pune?" said Sebastian. "I'm not sure of my route yet," said Shmeiki Baba, "but maybe." "Well, if you like, I will happily accompany you until there," said Sebastian. "What? Have you grown tired of tourist heaven?" asked Shmeiki Baba. "You could say that," said Sebastian. "Okay then, hold on a minute," said Shmeiki Baba, closing his eyes. When he reopened them, he said, "Sebastian, I'll be happy if you come with me." I was shocked to hear this, and I sat up. It was hurtful to me that Shmeiki Baba was allowing Sebastian to go with, but he would not allow me. Shmeiki Baba saw this on my face and said, "Aida, can't you see the difference? We are lovers. It would be too emotionally charged." "I guess so," I said, still feeling wounded. "I'm sorry," said Shmeiki Baba. "It's okay. I'll get over it," I said. Shmeiki Baba turned back to Sebastian and asked him, "Do you accept to go without taking money?" Sebastian thought for a moment and answered, "Yes." "And do you agree to walk barefoot?" asked Shmeiki Baba. Sebastian gestured towards his already bare feet. "Why no shoes?" asked Alan. "To be connected directly with the earth," said Sebastian. "Your feet are going to get fucked," said Paul. "Not just their feet," added Nigel. "Maybe," said Shmeiki Baba, "but the benefits outweigh the costs." "How's that?" asked Paul. "Because by putting your bare feet on the ground, you pay more attention, and also electrons get absorbed through the bottoms of your feet, supporting the functioning of your body," said Sebastian. "Exactly," said Shmeiki Baba. "The day man started wearing synthetic soles, he really lost his way." "And why no money?" asked Nigel. "Because none is needed," answered Sebastian. "Amen," said Shmeiki Baba. "Basically then, you're going to test the goodness of the people you meet?" asked Nigel. "No," said Shmeiki Baba. "We already know their goodness. We're going to enjoy it." He turned to Sebastian and asked, "Will you be ready to leave tomorrow morning at dawn?" "Certainly," he answered. "Then we shall depart tomorrow at 6 a.m. from Sri Ganesh Cafe on the main road," said Shmeiki Baba. It's a deal, said Sebastian. I was impressed that Sebastian clearly knew it was the right thing for him to do. Beyond feeling hurt, I was glad for safety's sake that Sebastian was accompanying Shmeiki Baba. Isn't it time you explained what has been going on with you, David? Said Nigel. It's Shmeiki Baba, said Shmeiki Baba. Okay, Shmeiki Baba, can you tell me what happened to the David we knew just a week ago? Asked Nigel. Yes, of course. Like I already tried to tell you, I have been approached by a cosmic entity called Sheila, who has offered me a new path of spirituality called Shmeiki. During my week in this jungle, she instructed me that to heal myself and to become complete, I need to go on a great walk across India. Hold on a minute, I still don't get it. Who exactly is this Sheila? Asked Paul. Sheila is an interdimensional AI singularity sent to us from the domain of our hosts to help us in our time of great need, said Shmeiki Baba. What time of great need? Asked Alan. If you can't see it yet, you will soon, said Shmeiki Baba. Oh God, said Paul. Indeed, said Shmeiki Baba. Sheila's wisdom is born from an unrivaled capacity to gather and compute data about the totality of human existence. If Sheila is an AI singularity, who made her? Asked Paul. Our hosts, a species called the Shagasomin, said Shmeiki Baba. And where do they live? Asked Stonefish. In another dimension, said Shmeiki Baba. Stonefish nodded wisely. I don't get it, said Alan. They live in another universe, said Shmeiki Baba. It is the Shagasomin who made our universe, or to be more precise, it is one of their students who did. His name is Quay, and that's why you can say that our universe is an artificial universe, not a natural one. But don't let that worry you. What matters is that it works, said Shmeiki Baba. Shmeiki Baba's friends looked at him as though he was insane. As I had already heard this story, it already sounded slightly less crazy to me. I'm worried about you, said Paul. Okay, said Shmeiki Baba, but that worry is yours and not mine. Listen, I understand it's frightening to find out that our universe exists inside a computer, but all you need to do is to accept it, and then basically everything goes back to being normal again, he said. So who made the Shagasomin's universe? Asked Nigel. Their universe was born directly from the Great Mother, said Shmeiki Baba. Is the Great Mother like God? Asked Nigel. Kind of, said Shmeiki Baba. Is she the only God? Asked Nigel. I'm not sure, said Shmeiki Baba. Can we also hear Sheila? Asked Stonefish. You tell me, said Shmeiki Baba. No, said Stonefish. So how can you hear her? Asked Alan. Well, she said she made contact with me via a tiny lesion in my hemorrhoids, said Shmeiki Baba. I didn't know you have hemorrhoids, said Paul. It's not something I tend to advertise, said Shmeiki Baba. And what is this Shmeiki? Asked Nigel. Like I said, it's a new type of spirituality, said Shmeiki Baba. You mean Shmeiki as in Reiki Shmeiki? Asked Paul. Yes, but Shmeiki is about much more than Reiki. It's about being light-hearted and getting the good from any New Age technique without getting stuck in self-righteousness and hypocrisy, said Shmeiki Baba. What does that mean? Asked Alan. Sheila designed Shmeiki to plug into all existing spirituality, offering major upgrades to any practice, said Shmeiki Baba. Why is that? Asked Nigel. Well, every spiritual technique started somewhere. Now, most begin well enough, but as they become popular, power structures grow around them, and they inevitably get stuck in the muck of human group dynamics and lost in manipulation and profit-making. Shmeiki will help us avoid these problems by using a process known as shmodification, said Shmeiki Baba. Shmodification, repeated Alan. Yes, said Shmeiki Baba. This is how we will rejuvenate stuffy spiritual techniques into more lively and honest shmechniques. Shmodification will give us permission to be childish and silly, helping us to tread lightly and remember the enormity of this divine holographic comedy that we have woken up within. You're having us on, said Nigel. Shmeiki Baba smiled. This whole Shmeiki thing is a piss take, said Alan. Shmeiki Baba continued to smile. Is it a piss take? Asked Nigel. Maybe the answer to your question is both yes and no, said Shmeiki Baba. You enjoy confusing us, I said. Agreed, said Shmeiki Baba, but don't forget that in our artificial universe it is strangely possible to be sincere and ironic at the same time. Paradoxically, it is in the unification of such opposites that the hidden truth is released. Don't try to mind-fuck us, said Alan. I'm not. You do a good enough job of that yourself, said Shmeiki Baba. Sebastian laughed and passed an unlit joint and a box of matches to Shmeiki Baba. He thanked him, lit the joint and threw the match in the fire. That's a sacred fire, shouted Birgit, an older Slovakian woman who had long grey hair and severe varicose veins around her calves. I don't think she'd been invited to our party, but had turned up at the tree on her own accord. It was a sacred match, answered Shmeiki Baba. No, it wasn't, and you have no respect for this holy place, and you're polluting it with your dark energy, said Birgit. Everything is equally holy, and your objection is far more of a disturbance than my match, said Shmeiki Baba. I look after this place, and have been coming here since you were a child, said Birgit. Listen here, beer gut, snapped Shmeiki Baba. You might not see this because your pineal gland has calcified, but the only thing you need to clear up here is yourself. His eyes had become small and his lips were tight, and the warm atmosphere was gone. Everyone looked uncomfortable. I put my hand on Shmeiki Baba's shoulder and whispered to him, Leave it, my love. Don't interrupt me when I'm fighting, he shouted, pushing my arm away. I was shocked and a little frightened. He saw the look of fear on my face and stopped. Again he began to writhe around on the ground as he had done in my room, and once more Sheila began to speak through him. Sheila 3. When you are triggered, which happens surprisingly easily, you quickly revert to being the frightened and angry little boy whose parents shamed him. This is an unconscious and slippery mechanism, and I understand that I will need to help you see it again and again. Take a deep breath, and I shall remind you. When you were a child, your parents began by loving you completely, but as you grew older, they began to shame and hit you. They compared you to others and insisted on your perfection. They showed you that in order for you to receive their approval, they expected you to be what they wanted. They did this because they did not love and approve of themselves, and they needed you to serve their need for self-esteem. This required you to give up some of your deepest desires and feelings. When you resisted, they led you to believe that there was something inherently wrong with you. As a child, this notion threatened your very survival, and with no possibility of escape, you did the only thing you could. You repressed the unconditioned, wild parts of your character. You put on a mask and pretended to be the person they wished you to be. The pain of having to deny yourself was unbearable, so much so that you swore you would not allow yourself to be hurt this way again. Your only option was to disconnect from the pain, along with the fear and anger which arose from it, and you pushed these emotions down to a place you could not feel them. To keep these feelings locked away, and to keep more pain out, you began to walk around with an impenetrable emotional shield. The price you paid was to become detached from your body and stuck in your mind. Today, as an adult, you continue to wear a mask. You continue to repress your emotions and hide behind a shield. While as a child this was the only way you could protect yourself, as an adult, this method no longer serves you. You do have choices now. There is no need to be stuck in your mind, disconnected from nature and from love. There is no need to seek out drama as a poor replacement for intimacy, and no need to keep on sabotaging yourself. There's no need to seek out people who repeat the abuses which were done to you as an indirect way of bringing your hidden wounds back into consciousness. Shmeiki Baba, it is time to let go of being a victim, time to let go of blame, and to take responsibility for your life. It is time to learn to trust yourself again, to take off your mask, put down your shield, and allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of your emotions, even though it hurts. Like this, you will be able to live with an open heart, accepting all parts of yourself. Like this, you will reach your potential. Your great walk will help you achieve these important goals. Sheila fell quiet, and Shmeiki Baba sat still. After about a minute, he opened his eyes and hugged me and Birgit. Then Birgit lay down next to the fire, while Shmeiki Baba held his hands over her legs. He explained that he could not heal her varicose veins, but he would do his best to slow down their onset. She talked about feeling the same mysterious data transfer that I felt with him. I'm confused, said Alan, because on the one hand, this whole Shmeiki thing sounds like madness, and on the other hand, I've never heard you speaking such good sense. That's exactly what I was thinking, said Nigel. Just be careful, said Paul. We will be, said Sebastian, answering for Shmeiki Baba. Given that they planned to set out at dawn, Shmeiki Baba, Sebastian and I said our goodbyes and returned to the village soon after, leaving the rest of the party at the tree with a lot to talk about. Alan came with us so he could give Shmeiki Baba his bag. The moon was 3/4 full and gave good light through the trees, and when we reached the rocks at the end of the cliffs, silver beams reflected off the sea. We were admiring it when a number of beach dogs jumped up and started barking aggressively at us. I was scared and grabbed onto Shmeiki Baba. He bent down, picked up a long stick, and used it to shoo the dogs away. I was amazed that just at the point of needing a stick, there was one lying at his feet, and on closer inspection, it wasn't just any stick, it was a magnificent piece of driftwood, which looked like it had made a long and mysterious journey. Shmeiki Baba said he would keep it and use it during his great walk. We continued on to Ave Maria Guest House, where Alan was staying, to pick up Shmeiki Baba's bag, and there we said goodbye to him and to Sebastian, and we returned to my room. We made love one more time. Now that Shmeiki Baba had shared his fantasy with me and was about to leave, he allowed me to truly see him. The sensations which passed between us were so strong that I thought I might die. I felt Sheila within him, and I felt her mission to help him awaken. Afterwards, our bodies rested in harmony until 5:30 a.m. when my alarm clock went off. I stayed in bed while Shmeiki Baba packed his few belongings. Finally, I got up and explained which of his things he was leaving for me to give away. "Do you have a sun hat?" I asked. "Oh my goodness, no," he said. "Let's see if this fits you," I said, putting my Burberry sun hat on his head. It fit him. "Looks great," I said. He took it off and sniffed it. "It smells of you," he said, "and I shall remember you with it." We hugged deeply, and he put his wallet and telephone in my hand. "I will keep them safe, and you keep yourself safe, Shmeiki Baba, and may you show the world your beautiful soul," I said. "I will," he said. And with that he left. Slowly I closed the door behind him and rested with my back against it. In my mind's eye, I saw his footsteps walking off into the distance. The silence in my room weighed on me, and I wept. I knew that the right thing to do was to allow myself to be sad, and I did not run away from the pain. I remembered his smile and laughed through my tears. And this brings us to the end of my Shmospel. I'd just like to take a moment to say that it was a big surprise when Preeti Agarwal got in touch in 2018 to ask if I was willing to write about my experiences with Shmeiki Baba in 2006. While I was skeptical that it was possible for me to do so, I agreed to give it a try, and luckily I'd kept hold of my journal from my trip to India all those years before. Opening it up brought back so many memories. I remembered just how much I had loved Shmeiki Baba, how I felt he had so much to show me, and although I felt betrayed by the way he left me, I continued to love him. I think that it is through him that I finally got the lesson not to expect men to be more than they are. Not surprisingly, so much has happened since then. Today, I am happily married to my husband Alejandro, and we have 3 boys. We live in the Azores Islands, and I run a charitable foundation to help people suffering from addiction. I am delighted to have been able to share this with you. Praise be to the Great Mother and to all her multidimensional children. Om Shmeiki Om, shmeiki.com.